The hillman minks ran into a concrete block wall. The wall was destroyed. The minks had minor injuries. Cars aren't made like that anymore. Today's cars are flashy, sophisticated, but soft. Look at them too hard, you might dent them. And in some respects, today's Christian is like that. It is full of frills, but it's soft. People compromise for personal gain. Political favors make some forget justice. Then we want luxury and comfort instead of spiritual growth. As a people of God, we need to be rugged and uncompromising, standing up for God no matter what. We have in Daniel 6 an example of a man who took a stand for God. A man was uncompromising. And I believe in this text we have just read, there are 5 lessons we can take away with us today. First of all, success attracts opposition. Here's Daniel, one of 3 top officials in the kingdom, doing well. And the king says, I'm going to make him number 1. Now, why was this a success? Well, first of all, he was a gifted person. He was among those chosen, Daniel 1:4, to be trained to stand in the king's presence. Men who understood science and so on. Gifted. A smart leader recognized his talents among his followers and make sure he would utilize that talent. So Daniel made progress in the kingdom. He saw one another. Nebuchadnezzar, for example, was retained by Darius after he conquered the kingdom. But beyond his talents, this man put God first. He made a commitment not to compromise. Back in chapter 1 with the food, he said, I'm going to eat that food. And God blessed him because he honored God. Daniel did not scheme. He did not cheat. He didn't lie. He didn't bribe. Didn't talk to anybody. And yet, he kept rising in the kingdom. For you see, when God is first in your life, whatever you do is going to prosper. You'll make your head up the tail. That's the God we serve. And there's Daniel in the kingdom making progress. And that progress got on the skin of his co-workers. Something in the simple nature doesn't want to see progress in others. And so they had one agenda, his co-workers. Let us bring this man down. And they kept searching and searching for something to accuse Daniel of. And it says they found nothing. What a testimony. People would search you at your workplace and find nothing to accuse you of. It's a great testimony. Daniel had that. You see, he was doing what he was doing as unto God. You see, when you go to work, you know who's your real boss? It's God. You do what you are doing as unto God. There will be no fault. So these men found nothing. It's okay. We will get him with something that concerns his God. So you get the king to make a law. Anyone prays to anybody else except you or any other God for 30 days will be cast into the lion's den. He was sure that would catch Daniel. That would bring him down. Yes, success attracts opposition. Understand this too. And let's co-workers point to the great opposition. The devil will always seek to bring us down when we are trying to go forward. That's what he does. Remember Israel? They left Egypt. What did Pharaoh do? He came after to bring them back into bondage. The devil does that. So when we are trying to move forward, he will come against us. But understand that's part of the territory. Don't stop trying to go forward, but expect to be opposed as you attempt to go forward. Lesson number 2. Prayer is indispensable. Now, Daniel hears that this law is signed. If you pray to any other god, it's a lion's den for you. What does he do? He goes to his room and prays as he always did. He did not say, I can take a vacation for 20 days. After all, after 20 days, I can keep praying. No, Daniel valued his time with God. It is crucial to spend time with God. The psalmist says, I have desired one thing. I will seek after it, to dwell in God's house all my life, behold his beauty, and to inquire in his temple. Psalm 27, verse 4. And I wanted that time in God's presence, and nothing will stop him from doing that. And I remember on campus years ago, there was a young man pushing a broom on a volleyball court to get the water off. The same evening was a prayer meeting of the Christian group on campus. And I recall him saying, there'll be many more prayer meetings. He didn't say many more volleyball games. It's a matter of priorities. Daniel understood the value of prayer. It was something indispensable. You see, we are told in the Testament to pray without ceasing. Be always praying. Think of the Christian armor, Ephesians 6. At the end of that description of the armor, you have to pray always. Never stop praying. It was prayer that opened the prison for Peter, Acts 12. They didn't go and get him out of jail by some, operation. No, they prayed and God worked. It was prayer that took the prison at Philippi and got the jailers to come to the Lord. It was prayer. Prayer works. The devil tried to get us as God's people to stop praying. You see, prayer is a powerful weapon. And if we stop praying, we are weak. Daniel said, I'm not going to stop praying. He prayed as usual, knowing that he was praying to a God who could make a difference. As a child of God, make sure you value prayer. Daniel did that. Indispensable. Can't do without it. Lesson number 3. Trusting in man is unwise. Notice what it says in verse 14. The king was displeased because he realized he had signed the law. He couldn't change it. It's going to hurt his best worker. And he tried all he could to save Daniel. He tried until the sun went down. He did his best. But beloved, his best was not good enough. So if it took him to save Daniel from going to the lion's den, Daniel would be in the lion's den. He couldn't stop that from happening. So all he could do is just say, well, I've done all I can do. and he spent the night without being able to sleep. Imagine Daniel depending on the king to save him. You know why we are sometimes frustrated and disappointed? We put our trust in the wrong people, and that word came up to us a while ago in the testimony. We are warned in the Bible, put not your trust in princes, Psalm 46 verse 3. And in all contexts, the princes are the politicians. They want us to depend on them. That's how they operate. Some will promise you the world to get a vote. Then they get the vote and explain to you why they can't give you the world. And then some will mean well. But when they get in, they find out their hands are tied. The system is bigger than they are, and they can't do what they figured it able to do. And then all politicians eventually lose power. And so, if you're trusting in them, when they fall, you fall as well. That is how it is. But listen, the Lord sits as king forever. Our God reigns. And so we need to make sure we never put our trust in man, because man, at the end of the day, will not help us. Here's a king who had power, and yet he could not stop Daniel from entering the lion's den. Never tell yourself you must depend on anybody to take care of you. Never do that. You'll end up disappointed and frustrated. Here we see that a king could not help Daniel. There's where we're going. Lesson number 4. Trusting in God is the right choice. Whatever else you do, make sure you put your trust in God. The king comes to the lion's den in fear and is asking Daniel, has your God, whom he served continually, been able to deliver you? Did your God come through for you? The answer was a resounding yes. God was there with Daniel in the lion's den. Lions couldn't hurt him because God shut their mouths. Verse 22 of our text. One song about this says, all night long, the lions never took a bite. All took away their appetite. How the song puts it. He is in the lion's den, yes, but the lions couldn't hurt him. Why? Because he trusted in God. That's the key. He did not fight the lions. He just put his trust in God. I was in a certain country some years ago, and where I was staying, they had some very big dogs. Don't know what kind they were, but the kind of dogs you don't want to mess with anyway. I could hear them in the back barking. Well, one morning I came out on the porch. There was only dogs on the porch. What should I do? Should I turn and run? You jump on the bed. I stood there and said, Lord, my life is in your hand. I just stood there. The dog did nothing. And the owner came out kind of frightened. I saw me and he saw the dog. Then he said, you have a way with dogs. Me? I don't even like dogs. It was all about trusting in God. God protected me that day from that dog. So, beloved, we don't fight in our own strength. We call upon God in our time of trouble. He will deliver us. Psalm 50, verse 15. And right now, perhaps in some sense, he tells us in the lion's den, maybe at your school, maybe even the very home, at the workplace, even in church sometimes when the lion's den. Paul spoke about perils among false brethren. 2 Corinthians 11, verse 26. But you know what? Wherever you find yourself, whatever lion's den, God will preserve you. We trust him. I have seen God shut lions' mouths already. People trying to eat me up and God shut their mouths. Notice something though. Daniel spent a whole night in the lion's den, but he came out unhurt. So he may not be taken out of the den immediately, you understand? But you're in there, you trust the Lord to protect you, preserve you. Daniel did not trust in the king. He put his trust in the Lord. And if we as a people would understand this and stop trusting man and trust God, we would see a difference in our country. Too many church leaders trust man, look to man for favors. If you know the God you serve, you don't fear anybody. I've said time and again, my God is always in power. You can't vote him out. I must trust him completely. Not just God, but the God I know. You see, most important thing in life is not having money, not being famous. None of those things. It's in knowing God. Knowing God. Daniel knew God, and he was preserved. So I keep saying about this verse that is probably my favorite, at least one of them. The people that do know God shall be strong and do exploits. Where's the verse found? Same Daniel 11:32. So lesson number 5, final lesson. We reap what we sow. Verse 24. The punishment seems harsh. People are taken with their families and cast into the lion's den. But remember something. It's the same thing that they had planned for Daniel. But what is sad is this, that their families were affected. Or bad choices can bring negative consequences to our families. So sometimes in the gang war, they target the relatives. Innocent people, but they get targeted. I remember as well the Joan Song suicide. That picture has stuck with me of a little child among these dead bodies. How that child got there? Parents. You make choices, they affect your children. Now, what happens to those men illustrates a biblical principle. Proverbs 26:27. If you dig a pit, you will fall into it. There is Haman building a gallows to hang Mordecai. Esther 5:14. In the end, he is hung on the same gallows. That was God at work. God will punish evil where there's no repentance. Unless there's repentance, there'll be punishment of evil. It might seem to be long in coming, but it will come. For as we say in this land, the longest rope has an end. Let's be careful what we plant, because the time is probably going to reach. So if a politician, for example, will destabilize a country to get into power, he will not suddenly return to normal because he's now in power. The seeds of lawlessness that you sowed will bear their fruits, and you have to deal with that. If a teacher at a school undermine discipline, to sabotage a principle, that school will not return to normal when he becomes principal. You understand? The same seedy soul that will discipline will come back to hurt him. There's a law of sowing and reaping. It works every time. If you sow evil, you're going to reap it. God is not mocked. Whatever you sow, you are going to reap. And we are meant to learn from these things, you know. When we look at the past, what people did, what they experienced, it's for us to look at that and learn and not make the same mistake. Here's something else. The law works as well positively. If you sow good seed, you're going to reap. So let's sow love and respect, discipline, contentment, and we're going to reap a harvest will not regret. Yes, you reap what you sow. So as we come to a close, as we sort of recap what we looked at today, the lessons we have learned. Success attracts opposition. Once you're to be moving forward, expect the enemy to come at you. But don't stop trying. Keep going forward, understanding that position is path with territory. Secondly, prayer is indispensable. Never stop praying. For you see, when you pray, you are in touch with God, you access God's help. Never stop. Keep on keeping on no matter what's happening. Trusting in man is unwise. Here's the king doing his best to save Daniel. He couldn't. Never tell yourself that your future depends on anybody else to fix things for you. Never trust in man. Trusting in God is the right choice. He is the one who can fix anything. He's a provider, deliverer. You trust him, you are never ashamed. What the king could not do for Daniel, God did. And I'm saying to us today, let us trust God. He never, never fails. Remember lesson number 5. We reap what we sow. Daniel's co-workers plotted evil against Daniel, and they reaped what they sowed. As we close, understand this. The God Daniel knew is the same God that we can know today. You see, the Bible has people we call heroes. But it's not these people, it's the God that serves. That's the difference. And that same God is the God that we can know today. And as Daniel stood up for God, and God came to for Daniel, as we stand up for God, he will come to us. But the key is always faith. Do I believe that? I say, oh, that's Daniel, that's the Bible. People in the Bible are people like you and me. You understand? Flesh and blood. But the God is he made a difference. And that God is here today and saying, come to me, trust in me, and I'll show you great things you don't know. May it be so for us, for his name's sake.